So I'm Irene. I'm the executive director and founder of Kidpower, Teenpower, Fullpower International, which we just call shortened to Kidpower, saying that our organization is for people of all ages, all abilities, all walks of life, whether they are kids or used to be kids. In other words, everybody all over the world. And we teach skills and strategies for preventing and solving problems with people, and for helping people protect their the emotional and physical safety of themselves and others. Now, this is the third in a series of 4 webinars. There's 2 each day for the different time zones. But on Monday, we had the emotional safety skills for helping protect your feelings, manage your emotional triggers. And we will have all of the webinars available through, hopefully by Sunday, we'll be able to send out links to people with the recordings of the webinars. So that was on Monday, and then on Tuesday we practiced and introduced boundaries and boundary setting skills for taking charge of our safety with each other. And today is advocacy skills. And then on Tuesday, I'll be working with a wonderful, a really talented conflict resolution trainer, Maurice Postlewaite, and she will be leading practices about conflict resolution for how to address issues and solve problems when we are stuck in the house together, or maybe when we're having conflicts because we're separate from each other and we're normally together and we have to communicate long distance. But today we are going to be discussing and demonstrating some of our advocacy skills. You might like for this to have a piece of paper, something to write on. I know it's old fashioned, but something to write on, a piece of paper and a pencil for a few things that don't require you to, that makes it so you can still see and hear what we're doing here on the computer. Advocacy means what we can do and say to promote and protect the well-being of ourselves and others. It takes time and persistence in order to be effective most of the time, or to be successful. And to be successful advocates, we have to be prepared to have time and persistence. Sometimes being an advocate for ourselves or someone else only takes a few minutes. Now that we have to keep, a big physical distance, and for me, a big physical, safe distance is not just 6 feet. For me, if I can get 15 feet, even if the person's no threat at all, it's not about that. It's about being really safe from each other's viruses. Then I will take my 15 feet. And we can actually, I've had good conversations with my neighbors across 15 feet, but sometimes as my husband and I are walking out in nature, there are people who are not as aware, and they will be walking sometimes just a whole group, along the path, so that it's not possible for us to get out of reach, to keep that large social distancing. And so we'll just say, would you please walk to the other side, and we'll stay on our side, and if we can go single file, that'll help us to stay apart from each other in a way that is safe. And they will, most of the time. We think about it, though, before we actually ask somebody, because we've had just one incident where somebody was barreling down the middle of the street, but he was looking like he was very upset and angry. And we knew that the small risk of some germs transmitting from him to us, or some viruses, was less of a risk than confronting him or asking him to do anything. So we just disengaged and moved away. So advocacy sometimes means being advocates for ourselves by getting out of a situation, and as well as by trying to change what somebody else is doing. Another time, sometimes it takes a couple of hours to advocate for ourselves, and some research. Now that we are at an age where we're not, really recommended that we don't, even for senior hour, go into the grocery store, then I had to do quite a bit of calling around to find a couple of stores where they were willing to take my credit card on the phone and a list of groceries and charge my card, and then we could come in our car and they can open the trunk. We stood inside the car. But it took some time, and it took asking them. And a lot of them said, oh, but we do the senior hour. And I said, well, I just want you to pass it on. I know you're not responsible for this, but I'm hoping that you'll reconsider just doing the senior hour, because our doctor says that that is not necessary, that creates a false sense of security for people who are truly more vulnerable to getting really ill. And sometimes advocacy can take months or years. I had a great experience that happened when my kids were young and with their friends. We would go to a park by a pond. People would leave their trash all over because there was no trash can. You had to go down a hill. There was a park trash can, a big one up by the parking lot, but where people were down below near the water where the ducks were, was all sorts of trash. And I even spent some time with the kids cleaning up the trash to help protect the ducks. So we agreed that it would be better to have a trash can down near the pond. The kids made drawings of ducks going, help, choking on trash, and wrote little letters asking our city council to put a trash can down there. They sent the letters and they didn't get an answer. And there was still no trash can. So I spoke to our city council, one of our city council people, and I said, did you get those letters? And he said, oh yes, we love them. We have them up in our office. I said, well, that's very nice, but you didn't answer the kids and you didn't solve the problem. He then immediately answered the letters, and the next time we went to the park, there was the trash can, and guess what? It was full of trash. There was trash in the garbage and not in the environment, because they had made it easy for people. The kids were so excited and overjoyed that they had had that much power. That is sometimes what has to happen with advocacy, being willing to take time and be persistent. How we advocate is essential to how well advocacy skills are going to work. And now I would like to have Ellen and John join us. They're going to help us with a couple of demonstrations. I should have said something about my helpers as they're getting themselves into the call. Oh, there you are. So we have Ellen and John, we have Erica answering questions, and Iman helping with the technical part of things. So can we hear you?
I think so.
Oh, good. It works. All right. So I'd like to start with showing how different ways of speaking up or dealing with a situation where somebody is clearly not being respectful or not being thoughtful and following what the rules are in a way that impacts you. So let's imagine that John is clearly very healthy and fit, and he's sitting on the seat of the bus where there is the sign that says that seat, that part of the bus right by the door, is for people with disabilities and who need to be able to sit there. Ellen is somebody who uses a cane and is unsteady on her feet. Now, John is absorbed in his magazine, and Ellen is going to do what a lot of people do, is we're going to try out different approaches. First, she's going to wish. She's gotten on the bus, the driver's busy driving and oblivious. So she's going to wish. She's going to really wish that John would notice and get up and offer her his seat. Wish harder, Ellen. I'd like everybody to wish with Ellen that John would change his behavior. Ellen, is wishing working?
No, it's not working at all.
No, have you ever, and all of you ask yourselves the same question, everybody who's listening, ask yourselves, have you ever really wished that somebody would do something or not do something, but you didn't say or do anything except feel upset inside? Yeah. All right, so try something else. Let's say that you're somebody that doesn't feel confident in speaking up for yourselves. You don't like to bother people. You don't want to be trouble, and you really need that because you're really feeling unsteady. So ask him in a very quiet, timid way.
Um, excuse me. Excuse me. Would you maybe be willing to let me sit here because I really need a seat, please?
Okay.
No, I'm very tired, and this was my seat, so I'm gonna sit here.
Well, why don't you try pleading? Just really beg him. Try to make him feel bad. Yeah.
Please let me sit here, sir. I'm really not well, and I'm unsteady on my feet. And if you would just please move to another seat and let me sit here, I would be so grateful. Please, sir. Please.
No, I need to sit. I am tired. I have worked a hard, long day, and I need to sit. So find somewhere else.
All right. Now, sometimes people come in angry because somebody is not listening and not being respectful, and not following the rules. And sometimes people get angry after doing what Ellen's been doing, wishing, kind of, hinting or being very tentative, and then begging. So now, Ellen, however wherever you are, maybe you came in this way, maybe you're this way now, get really angry.
Hey! That is really unacceptable! Do you not have eyes? Can you not read? This is a seat for people with disabilities!
What is wrong
You
with
are
you?
so rude! What kind of an idiot are you?
Why are you screaming on this bus?
Because
I
you are
was
just
minding my business. I'm sitting here. This is my seat.
I like you both pointing at each other, just pointing at each other. This doesn't go well. Often when people are angry, you're angry, all somebody hears is your anger. So now let's imagine you didn't do any of those things. You've had some training with Fullpower, and now you're going to come in and be clear and respectful and assertive.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to bother you. I see that you're reading. I have a disability, and this seat is actually reserved for people with disabilities, and I would be very, very grateful if you could find another seat, and then I could sit comfortably and we could be on our way.
That sounds reasonable. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
There we go. Good job. All right, now we're going to make another situation. We're going to come up with a different situation, which is we're going to, and this I will tell you, now I need to tell you first of all, that we deal with wonderful school administrators and deeply caring teachers who are very committed to the safety and well-being of their kids. And we also, the biggest reason why people contact Kidpower under normal circumstances, which this is not, the biggest reason why people contact Kidpower is because they're upset that their child was being bullied at school and the school wasn't addressing the problem. So John, I believe, is going to be a concerned parent, right? And Ellen is going to be a deeply unsympathetic administrator. And normally, this could be happening on the phone. I guess I'm so old-fashioned. Look, that's how I think of phones still. This could be, yes, that's true. That too. This could be happening on, sitting down. But because of our space, we'll have you just facing each other, but remembering to talk a little bit towards the camera. And so, John, you're going to come up and you're going to go through all three phases. You're going to start being tentative. We've already tried the wishing technique, okay? That didn't work. You've been wishing the school would do something, your kid's coming home miserable, and that's not working. So now you're going to be at first tentative, because many people are taught to respect people in positions of authority and not to speak up. And Ellen's just going to ride right over you. Then you're going to get angry. And that's gonna, and Ellen's gonna try to write you off, and then you're going to get very persistent and assertive. All right? Okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, hi. So I just have a couple concerns.
A little louder, John.
It has to do with my daughter. I'm just worried that maybe she's being bullied, and that it's having an impact.
Bullying is such a buzzword these days.
Well,
I don't actually think that you should pay any attention to any child who uses that word.
She seems unhappy.
Yeah.
And
well, you know what? She's what? 7th grade? Am I right?
Yeah.
Who's happy in 7th grade? You need to just let it go.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm a parent.
Okay, get mad.
Okay. My daughter is in a terrible place. She's being bullied. The school's doing nothing. I don't know what your job is.
Okay. You do not have a right to come in here.
Do you speak for the school?
Yes, but I do not appreciate your tone. I don't like being accused of things.
She come home, she's crying. She's not studying. She's unhappy.
I am not a psychologist.
She tells us she doesn't want to go to the school anymore. We have no choice. We have to send her.
Well, I mean, everyone has choices, sir. You know, maybe you should just make
I don't think you're doing your job.
Okay. and the person, you did great. The person that you're trying to convince to take some action gets defensive, doesn't want to hear it, avoids you. There might even be it starts to blame your child for the problems that are happening. So now let's start over. You are going to come in calm, clear, and assertive. And Ellen, the school administrator, is still going to take some persistence, because you're overwhelmed and busy. All right.
Okay. Hello, my daughter, I fear, is being bullied at school, and I think it's having an impact on her sleep and on her ability to concentrate in class. And
what evidence? A lot of kids say that they're being bullied. Do you have any evidence?
I'm sure that's true. I have evidence because she tells me, and she comes home with very specific sort of details about what's happening to her.
Well, the dynamics in middle school are challenging. It's a tricky time. I'm sure you're doing your best, but I would encourage you not to maybe put too much stock in what your child is saying.
I think we both want to solve this problem. We can probably work together. I'm sure that we can make some progress just in making her day safer and making it a happier time for her in school.
Do you have specific things you'd like me to do?
I do, and we should talk about those.
Okay, well, I'm open to hearing your ideas.
Fantastic.
Great. That was great. We'll go into the whole problem solving with the conflict resolution workshop next week. But that was great, because you stayed calm and centered, and Ellen was able to listen. And you also came from what we call a we place. We want kids to feel safe at school. We want to solve problems. Well done. We'll have you back later, but thank you so much.
All right. See you soon.
A little bit. Okay. So there are 5 tools that I want to discuss. There are actually hundreds of tools, but I'm going to discuss 5 of them for effective advocacy. You need to know your rights, reasons, and values. You need to know why you're going to advocate and what it's for. You need to walk in like you own the place. That's something my dad taught me as a shy kid a very long time ago. You need to keep or to create a heart connection with the person whose behavior you like to change. It does help if you can do that, or at least do your best to do that, or find somebody within a system with whom you can create a heart connection. You need to know when and how to get help. And finally, you need to be able to overcome resistance with cheerful, relentless persistence. These are the 5 tools for, 5 of the tools for addressing difficult situations for advocacy. So let's go back to know your reasons and your values and why it is that you are going to advocate for somebody to change their behavior in some way. You want them to do something differently, or you want a system, and the system is always made up of people. So there's quite a few things to remember. First of all, there is a difference between what a common practice that everybody does, a regulation, which is a rule that a school, an organization, or a workplace might have, or a rule even that a government department might have made about a law. Laws are harder to change because they take political actions. They can be changed, but they're harder to change. Regulations can be, you can often, if you look hard enough, you will find a hole. And common practices also can be changed. And you can say you don't have to do things the way everybody does them. It's uncomfortable, and you do have the power to do it. So you want to know the difference and have a very clear focus about what it is you're going to do. You also want to pick your battles. If some people make a habit out of advocacy, and they don't necessarily do the heart connection part of it. They do the very clear what they want part of it without thinking about other people, and that can cause people to lose credibility or to be somebody that you might want to avoid. So, realizing that I lost my place. Good. So part of having clarity is to in focus is to just get yourself very, very, very I'm sorry, just focused on, but stumbling over my words here, having just done this. So let me just tell you a story. Okay, so the cups for the kindergarten is a story that when my son was about 5 years old, the school bus took us to a park, and the teachers, we got to the park, and the teachers, as the bus was getting ready to drive away and the driver was going to take a break, the teacher said, "Oh no, we forgot cups for the juice and the water that we brought for the kids." And I suddenly got this, I thought, well, I knew my son was happy swinging at the park, and I said, "I'll get cups." I didn't have any money with me, as it happened, so I just asked the people there, "Can anybody give me some money? I'll run to the store and I'll get cups for the kindergarten." Because I'd ridden the bus, I didn't have my car. I was just going to run to the store. But as I was running towards the store with a handful of money, then I saw the bus was just getting ready to drive away. So I ran up to the bus and I pounded on the door, and the driver opened it, and I said, "I know you're heading towards the store. You're passing the store on your break. Would you mind taking me to the store? It'll speed things up. I've got to get cups for the kindergarten so the kids can have their juice." So she took me on the bus, or he took me on the bus, and I got the cups. And when I came out, instead of being gone, I thought I was going to have to run back. The driver had waited so that I got to go back, and was back within about 15 minutes of when I left the school, in plenty of time for snack. that kind of, you look for your opportunities once you really know what you want, and you can engage other people in a happy way. And that driver, I mean, I just was praising them to the skies. That driver felt like a hero. So making people feel really good when they help you is part of advocacy. Instead of saying that's just their job or they just ought to do it, make people feel good when they help you. Then another part of being really clear is with each other. That's why there's policies that people write down, that people get together and say, these are our policies for preventing abuse or preventing bullying in a school or harassment. These are our policies for ensuring safe practices of all different kinds. I mean, heaven knows we are just getting a whole boatload of new policies about keeping things clean and washing our hands and sanitizing things. So policies, not touching our face. Okay, so and it helps to write things down. Often as policies get to be so wordy because they're trying to cover everything, that you need some simple signs about the bottom line. People need reminders. I need reminders. When the road says, the signs that say slippery when wet is a reminder. Wash your hands is a reminder. So what you want to, what we can do, and we often do this is our Child Protection Advocates workbook as part of our 3-day institute that we're not going to have this summer, but we are going to be having some programs online to help people get some of the experience of the institute. We'll be having some workshops. In the meantime, though, I just want to share with you this. So with your paper next to you, think about something that you would like to make sure everybody does in your family or doesn't do, or in your workplace, and just write it down in simple, clear language. I really love this. This is a sign of made by a 12. This was made by a 12-year-old. And he posted it on his bedroom door to state the rules for his older brother, Mason. So it says, Mason, rules. The following rules are not negotiable. Before I do this, though, I want to encourage you to think about the fact if you're all together in the house all the time, every person in that house really ought to have a place that is just theirs. It helps, even if you have a small house, something under a table or behind a couch, a place that is just theirs. If you can have your own room, that's great. But it doesn't have to be that. And parents, adults in the house should have just their space too, that everybody else respects and lets them make the rules as long as it's safe. Okay, Mason rules. The following rules are not negotiable. 1, you are not to enter my room without knocking and hearing me say, come in, or open the door. 2, you must state your reason to come to my room before I will allow you to enter. I reserve the right to deny you entry at any time. 3, you are to be honest about your reason, and you are not to complain if I do not permit you to enter. And 4, you are not to knock on my door after 11 p.m. or before 8 a.m. Thank you. We do have, people have put up rules like no cell phones in offices. It used to be, in some places still is, no smoking. It's become enough places where there is no smoking allowed that that isn't as common anymore, at least not here. However, there are other rules that people need to have. And I once did some work for a health clinic where some of the people were coming in and being pretty mean to the staff there, and sometimes to each other, and even threatening. So we came up with something that the people working at the desk could point to and say, these are the rules. Because then it wasn't them making it up. It's like that sign on the bus that says, this is for people with disabilities. Welcome. At the health clinic, we are committed to providing a safe, respectful, peaceful environment for all of our patients, guests, and staff. I hope you are coming up with your own with your own rules, at your own sign that maybe you can experiment with posting. And if you want, you can make a photo of a sign and email it to safety@kidpower.org. I love to see people's signs. For the well-being of everyone and to ensure that we can provide service, no swearing, no abusive or violent language or behavior, and no weapons will be tolerated. People will be asked to leave if any of these behaviors occur. Thank you, the staff at the health clinic. I'm seeing that people would like a repeat of those five, of the 5 tools for effective advocacy. Know why, your rights, your reasons, your values. Walk in like you own the place. Keep or create your heart connection. Know when and how to get help. And overcome resistance with relentless, cheerful persistence. And someday I will be having something where it can just go across the screen, but I'm in my house here with my husband, who is less technical than I am. And so we will do our best and I will make sure that next time when I have something like that, that is in writing for the chat box. So thank you for speaking up. Okay, so walk in like you own the place. My dad once, we were wanting to he took me to New York when I was 12 years old. And he told me that we could go to the theater and to see a musical comedy. And whenever he called, every place he called, then they said, it's sold out, there's no way, there's no chance. So he said, well, we're going to go to the theater because I bet somebody won't show up. And he took me to the theater, and he went to the, to the people that were letting people in. And he said, my daughter and I are just here for a little time in New York City, and she's never been to a real live theater. If somebody doesn't show up or you find out, could you sell us the tickets? Sure enough, we got tickets, and it was a great show. So that is, he taught me that it's that people had said, it's impossible, it can't happen. Part of it, just because somebody official says so, doesn't mean something's impossible. I can remember a number of years ago when Steve Jobs was still in charge of Apple computers, then we had an Apple office and we replaced some of our old computers. Unfortunately, it turned out later that we got a batch of lemons, and they had all sorts of problems. Our staff worked so hard following the phone tech support, and we weren't in an area where it was easy to just get rid of the computers because we really needed to have them. They kept trying. I finally got on the phone, even though I had no technical skills in that area, but I wasn't going to follow tech support. I was trying to go up the chain of command, find out somebody with enough authority to help me. And so with each person, I said, it looks like you can't help me. Who next? Finally, they just said, it's not possible. This is a problem on your end. And I said, so how do I contact Steve Jobs? And they said, well, there's no email for Steve Jobs or phone number. I said, so what do I do? And they said, well, I guess you could write to him. So I did. I sent a real letter to Steve Jobs. Dear Steve Jobs, we have always appreciated our Apple computers for being very reliable. And unfortunately, our new computers are not working well. We've tried everything. And I would hate to have to tell people that our new computers from Apple work less well than our old ones did. Oddly enough, less than a week later, I got a call from the head of their marketing department. She apologized, replaced the computers, and gave us lots of good stuff to compensate for all the time and trouble that we'd had. So it's worth it to go up the chain of command if you really feel that something's right and important enough to do that with. You can, another situation was with my elderly parents, where I often had to advocate with the healthcare system to make sure that they were not, that they were able to get healthcare at home. It instead of just sending them to the office, they were at a place in their lives where it was not best for them to do that. It can be hard if you don't feel entitled, like you have the right to insist. And especially when you're vulnerable, when you're doing it. Sometimes I do practices with people who might be living in shelters, or who might have some serious medical problems and don't have much money, where they go to take the bus to go and maybe get a test or get a piece of paper they need, and the office is so busy that they don't help them, and they'll wait, and they're worried about missing their bus. And so we have them practice staying calm while insisting that they just saying, excuse me, interrupting the person, excuse me, I really need these papers, and not going away and not giving up, because they have the right. When they had made an appointment and the people were running so late that they couldn't, they weren't doing what the people needed, that it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, as we say in English. All right. It is, my wonderful husband is kind of a righteous person, and he gets really annoyed when people don't do things just because it's the right thing to do. However, that doesn't work very well. I can remember when he got annoyed at a woman in a sandwich shop who was so, just so frantic that she ended up getting really, getting behind. And he said, he was very rude. And I was like, oh, don't do that. And he said, I want hot mustard, really, really hot mustard. And when he got his sandwich, it was so hot. I don't know what kind of mustard it was that he couldn't eat it. People are overwhelmed. And when people don't call back, for example, when they wanted a service from us and they didn't follow up, I just forgive them for being overwhelmed, because I know I can be overwhelmed myself too. I say I'm not going to let somebody's overwhelmed stop their students from learning safety skills. I'm not going to waste energy, because that's where you lose energy and time, is by being so frustrated. If you just say, okay, people are overwhelmed, so be it. Know when and how to get help. Now, I teach people how to get help, and yet I'm a very independent person who hates asking for help myself. I once had a broken leg, and I was not very good on the crutches, and somebody had a handout for me to take, and I didn't want to take that person's hand because I darn it wanted to do it myself. But my safety is more important than my not wanting to get help, and I shouldn't be falling down with a broken leg. So I finally took the hand and let him help me up, and that was great. So often people fear of bothering people, of not wanting to interrupt somebody, makes it hard for them to get help. So we practice being persistent in getting help. Overcoming resistance with cheerful, relentless persistence. Once I was our airplane flight had gotten canceled. I'm just trying to keep track of the time because we've got another great demo coming. So the airplane was canceled, and people were just yelling at this poor agent. We were back in the line, and when we finally got there, I said, she was trying to rebook people or help them, and I said, you are just working so hard, and people aren't being very nice to you, and I'm sorry. And she looked at me and she said, yes. And the airline's not being able to get somebody else to help me. I said, you really should have somebody else to help. And she said, yes. And I said, I'm sorry that this is so hard and that people are being so unkind. And she said, you know what? I just see that there's 2 seats for the flight out tomorrow. I'll book you in them. And we got to go out in the morning. So, that being persistent and kind once I was ill and in the hospital, and I had to have a test in order to make sure it was safe for me to leave the hospital. And I was desperate to leave the hospital and get that test done. And they had kept postponing it all day long. And I knew that if it got too late, I wasn't going to get to go home. So I kept asking everybody, can you get that test? It's been postponed now 5 times. I want the test. And they say, nobody can't happen. And finally, the spiritual counselor came in, and I said, the spiritual guidance that I need is to talk to somebody with enough authority to get that test done. And so she brought the head nurse in. Now, the head nurse was very overwhelmed and stressed, and just kept saying, I have no power. Now I'm lying down. I had laryngitis along with the other problems I had. So I was whispering, can you please get the test scheduled? I had, things in my arm, and she's standing over me saying, I have no power. And I thought, you poor woman, I wish I could give you a lesson to show you all the ways you do have power, but right now I want a test. So I finally asked, do you have the power to ask? And she looked at me, and then she said, maybe. And she went and she asked, and I got my test, and I got to go home. That's what cheerful, relentless persistence looks like. So we also want to use these advocacy tools to create a better world, a more respectful, kinder, safer world for everyone. And part of that is being prepared to speak up about put downs. So Ellen and John, would you please beam back in? And many people are uncomfortable about speaking up. They're afraid somebody won't like them, or be annoyed or angry at them. Our founding principle at Kidpower is to put safety first, to put safety and the well-being of people ahead of uncomfortable or upset feelings. So we're going to demonstrate a couple of situations where Ellen and John are 2 colleagues, and one of them is going to be very disrespectful about some other colleague. And so the advocacy is for somebody else, not just for yourself, but for somebody else who isn't even there, but is no doubt affected by, I believe it's Ellen's attitude. All right.
Oh my God. Have you heard Mary today? She's got this voice that's grating on my nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. She is, I just can't stand her. Oh my God. Put her in her own office. Close the door. Lock it. Throw away the key.
Remember that this is a professional setting, and we must work together, and we are colleagues. We support one another.
Yeah, but she is really just like off the rails annoying.
I don't think that really matters. I think what matters is that we support one another, we work together, and if, perhaps we have a conversation to see that if we need to work some things out to be productive, then we can have that conversation.
How can you stay so calm? You're not like completely annoyed by this woman?
Personal differences, whatever they might be, can be worked out. But this, again, is a professional setting, and we need to work together.
All right. I'll try.
Great.
Okay, great. Good job. All right, great. So now let's say you're at a party and one of you is making rude remarks about somebody or people who don't have homes. And the other one is going to speak up about that, about the really disrespectful, prejudice kinds of remarks.
Am I making the prejudice remarks? Okay. So I just have to say, homeless people drive me nuts. I just ran into somebody homeless, typical, stupid, not washed.
Oh, okay.
It's like, can we just put these people in a bus?
I understand, and I hear what you're saying, that you feel upset when you have to interact with people.
No, but this is a serious problem that impacts me. It's like my quality of life is down here.
Right.
And if we didn't have homeless people standing in front of the door when I walk in the building,
John,
my quality of life would be up here.
I hear what you're saying, and I think it's important to be respectful for people who are going through difficult life circumstances. And the way that you're talking about homeless individuals makes me deeply uncomfortable. And I think you're a better person than this.
Okay, maybe I'm overreacting. I'll think about what you've told me.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, another form of advocacy is when two people get stuck in a conflict and somebody else can intervene. So the two of you are parents, and you have different views about what's happening with your daughter's education now that you're home and being and dealing with the things coming from the school rather than her being at school. And I'm somebody that's a bystander. Happens that I'm on Skype. Actually, I've had times, or on Zoom. Happens that sometimes I've done this actually on Zoom, but not quite like this. So go ahead. And
I'm concerned that our daughter is wasting time. She's sitting around the house. She does work for 30 minutes, perhaps, and the rest of the day is lost. I mean,
Okay,
where does
John,
this lead?
John,
It's laziness.
these are unprecedented times. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, but,
is it possible that she's incredibly stressed?
But it reflects poorly, and I think that maybe 10 years from now, these habits will have set in.
Oh, for God's sake.
There's no turning back.
We're in week 2 of this shutdown time. I think that we just need to be kind.
I talked to a coworker. His daughter is like.
Okay, hang on. Take a breath. Take a breath. Let it out again. You both really, really, really love your daughter, and you want the best for her. And getting upset with each other is not helping you or your daughter right now. So we're gonna, calm down. And next week, when Maurice is there to help us, we'll work out a conflict resolution a program with this, and get something that's a win-win for all of you, your daughter and both of you. Okay. That's an intervention. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to keep going because I do have some time, but I'm going to keep going. You've done a great job. Thank you. All right. So I can't tell you how many times my husband and I have had conflicts that went on for hours. We wasted hours being upset with each other about things that how we communicated. We even forget about what the conflict was about. And then in the morning, we'd forget about what the conflict, we could solve it quickly. Once our daughter, though, that intervention, she saw us start to get irritated, and she came in between us, and she must have learned this at school. She picked up a pencil and she said, "This is my magic talking pencil." She was about 10. And she said, "You're both very tired, so you're going to take turns talking. When my magic talking pencil is pointed at you, you can talk. The other person just has to listen." So she started with her daddy, and he started to say things I thought were outrageous, and I'd be like, but, and she'd look at me and she'd say, "Is the pencil pointing at you?" Anyway, she got us to go, and we got so charmed by the fact that our kid was helping us like this, that we both, of course, completely stopped being angry, and we're just let her be in charge. And then after a little bit, she said, "It's my favorite program now. I'm going. You guys talk in the morning." And we did. So an intervention doesn't have to be heavy or hard. Sometimes it is. Sometimes, often though, when if you walk by a conflict in a situation where you have some level of responsibility, and where people are getting worked up and rude with each other, if you're responsible, so for example, if a teacher leaves the school grounds as kids after school are being mean to each other, and doesn't say or do anything, even if the parents are standing by, that puts a lie to all those respect signs that are all over the school. And an intervention can just be as simple as, this doesn't look safe. And so if you want to separate, or if you want to talk to me, let's figure out how to make this a safe situation. That can be an intervention. I did want to, I was afraid I wouldn't have time, but I did want to go about one story about getting help. So I want to go back to that my daughter kept, when she was in the 7th grade, same daughter, kept coming home. She was one of 4 girls in her advanced math class. And the teacher kept making remarks that were making her very uncomfortable because they were about how she looked and how pretty she was, and very suggestive, and remarks about her friend, and very inappropriate remarks. This is a long time ago. We would be calling that sexual harassment now, and it wouldn't fly. So I said, and she spoke up, and he just got worse. I coached her to speak up, it got worse. So I said, I need to go talk to him because, you're being miserable in a class where you should be having fun. She said, as long as I don't have to be there. So I said, you don't need to be there. I went in, and he just started getting angrier and angrier and angrier as I talked. And finally, he just exploded at me. Who are you to tell me this? I've been teaching for 30 years, and no one has ever said this to me. And I said, well, I thought after 30 years, it's about time. But I thought, well, I'm the director of Kidpower, which was just getting started, and I'm her mom. And I said, I understand that this is different. And I'm worried that although he thinks, can't she take a joke? What's wrong with her? She has to toughen up. The world's like this. And I said, I'm worried that, there's only 4 girls in your math class. And I'm worried that you're creating an environment where they might drop out or give up on math. And I don't want one of these girls 30 years from now to be on some therapist's couch talking about you and how you destroyed their joy of learning math. And he said, well, this is just nonsense. And I said, this is where getting help, knowing how to get help, because I was being the help, but I said, it sounds like we can't understand each other. So I think perhaps we need to talk to the school counselor who might be able to help us work this out. And then he just deflated like a balloon. he said, well, but she doesn't like me. And I said, it's not her job to like you or your job to like her. It's your job to teach her math, and it's her job to learn it. And after that, the harassing remarks stopped. So sometimes you just have to, that's being persistent. It's not demonizing the other person. And it is being able to identify that on an adult level, saying I'm going to involve the school counselor is a form of saying stop or I'll tell. I want to pause in case there are any questions, because I just kept rolling here. Erica.
No questions, Irene.
Huh?
There are no questions, Irene.
Okay. So again, what we've covered, I know people ask me to do this more than once. Know why you're doing this. It gives you focus, have clarity. Remember the cups for the kindergarten, you go for it. Pick your issues though. Don't just scatter your energy. Walk in like you own the place, like you have the right to be there. Part of knowing why is also being clear on the rules, making those signs and posting them and upholding them. Walk in like you own the place means projecting an attitude of confidence and knowing you have the right to speak up and to ask for what you want. Sometimes things have to be negotiated, but knowing you have that right. Keeping or creating a heart connection, because when we connect with people, when they understand and they feel like we care about them, and I actually do care about them, but sometimes people, once one of my colleagues said, why do I have to say nice things to people when I'm giving them feedback? She said, that's bullshit. And I said, well, actually, I think of it as fertilizer. It helps things grow. And she's okay. She was giving positive feedback ever since, to communicate caring. Because if you want a human being, and our systems are all made up of human beings, to change their behavior, it helps to do that. Knowing how and when to get help, and then having that cheerful, relentless persistence. Don't give up if something's really important to you. And sometimes that often means involving other people and working together for change. We have some great resources. I know that, and I do want to acknowledge that this book that Dr. Amy Tiemann co-authored with me, she's an author, a child safety expert, the founder of our Kid North Carolina Center, and she also, is is a neuroscientist, and we wrote this book together to take best practices in child protection. And you can get it on Kindle. We've reduced the price so that it's affordable to people anywhere. But it tells how to protect child safety, and actually the same tools. Apply the principles of what we teach to all levels of society, from kids when they're very young all the way through college. But they also are principles that help us as adults with each other. So that's another resource for you. We have many, over 400 free resources in our online library. I know that you are that you can find the resources, and if you get stuck, I really hope that you will tell us. We are just beginning this adventure of taking classes. We have taught tens and hundreds of thousands of kids in person. And now we are moving to, and adults too. We work with all ages, teens, adults, people in businesses, people, educators, parents, and people in senior centers. So we are learning how to do this. We appreciate you telling us what does work. Appreciate you telling us your suggestions for how to make this better. We're going to continue the webinars as people have kept asking us questions, repeat some of these webinars. We'll have the recordings available for the ones we have soon, probably hopefully by Sunday. And we will also be starting online classes, workshops. We're making things available as we're embarking on this for free to help people during these hard times. When everybody's struggling and facing a lot of disruption in our lives. I know that times are hard for many people now, and Kidpower and organizations, nonprofits, businesses, and Kidpower is no exception. We are deeply committed to making our skills available to as many people as possible, and to helping people figure out how to apply those skills to their specific concerns. If you're in a position to help us with a donation in any amount, that would be appreciated. If you're not, please don't worry about it. The most important thing to me is that you're here. I am hoping that you will take the time to teach a skill. If any of these skills or stories or ideas are useful to you, share them with people you know. Teach them to others so that we can create a culture where we have a shared vision of safety and respect and kindness for everyone, no matter what our differences are. We are connected in this world, and I think we are getting such a dramatic example of this during this pandemic. We're stronger when we work together in ways that work well for us. So I want to show you something about connection. If you'll do this with me, if you'll just put your fingers together like this, and notice that your fingers can slip apart easily and they lose connection. Now put a lot of fingers together, and if you make them a little strong, then you have more connection, a stronger connection. And even with two fingers, if you hang on tight to the people who are important to you. Call them up. Say, how are you doing? How can I help? As a community, I've been so heartened that so many people are offering to help and are doing their best to help, do the things we need to do to take care of each other while helping this pandemic to stop. So hang on tight with each other as a community and with us in Kidpower. I am so grateful that you've been here with us today. We'll welcome your questions. I will be able to read your text later, and we will have our next webinars are on Tuesday. We'll have one at noon again, California time. Check that world clock, and at 6, so that we can reach people with conflict resolution skills for solving conflicts, reducing stress, and solving conflicts with each other while we're in such unusual circumstances. So with that, stay well, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay in touch. And I look forward to being with you again. Thank you so very much.